Welcome back to the podcast. Today we've got Renee Walker, the legendary TED Talk speaker. We really could talk about some topics today that may push a couple of your buttons. So to sit back and, tighten up your seatbelt a little bit. We're going to get into some ideas that really help move people forward. Sometimes, we're fed a line of stuff. You always got to be nice about things. And today we're going to poke at some ideas that may challenge some of that. So let's see where we go. Renee, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for having me.
Your TED Talk is a little bit right in your face. It's a little bit about, hey, not always, you don't always have to leave everybody being nice. Sometimes you do got to burn a bridge or two, right?
100%. Like success requires burning a few bridges, which was my TED Talk, is really about bunking conventional wisdom, right? I mean, since we were children, we've been told that you don't burn bridges because you don't know if you'll need to cross them again. And if so, you want to make sure that they're there. I say no. I think that there are opportunities for us to move forward to actually be present in our lives and to make decisions that are best for us. So, toxic relationships, whether in business or in life, personally or whatever, not. There are situations that require that we burn bridges. Now, I'll say this, you need to be tactical and strategic about how you do it for sure. But the notion that you should just go along to get along is absolutely false.
Yeah, come on. There are definitely been people in my life where I do not need to be around those people. They create or involved and create toxic environments. And, some of them come under some sort of badge of, they come in disguise, right? A lot of them come in disguise. They may be a boss or a person or a leader of an organization. And then you find out, that person's toxic. Right. I being around that person, I start being toxic. I start acting toxic. And you start to notice that and go, look, I don't want to be that way. Look, the way I want to be doesn't involve that behavior. So let's talk a little bit about what do you mean by burning bridges?
For sure. So we are all presented with what I consider to be precipitating events that just absolutely requires us to take decisive action. And I think what holds a lot of us back in this regard is this thought that we're not going to be nice or we're not going to be perceived as nice and blah, 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 as you noted. What's really important is to understand that burning bridges is not about being Machiavellian. It's not about deception. It's not about any of those things. It's not about being ruthless. What it's about is creating the life that you desire and the success that you'd like to achieve, whatever that is to you. So there's no limit to what that means for us as individuals. But what it means for us as people is that we have to be authentic. And there are people and situations, such as the one I faced in my 20s, where I was working for a Fortune 100 company. I'm an African American female in the early 80s, working my way through college, had an amazing opportunity, was cross trained on a number of functions. And you know what? My manager's colleague stole my idea and sent it to the executive floor and was not able to answer the treasurers. And again, this is a Fortune 100 company. He couldn't answer the questions. So they came back to me to try and get me to answer them. And instead, I wrote a memo under my signature to the treasurer of that corporation, fully expecting that I would be fired when I returned to work the next day. What they didn't appreciate was that for me, it was about integrity. It was about burning those bridges because it was the right thing to do. That was absolutely not appropriate. And frankly, Anthony, who would expect a 22-year-old African American female to have the moxie to do that? Right?
That's right. Well,
And so, but what gave me that opportunity was basically I had relationships on the executive floor that they did not appreciate. So I wasn't capricious in how I proceeded with that. I really thought about it, but I was really pissed. And so even if I lost that position and was fired, I was actually okay with that. I felt that my integrity was more important than working with people who would steal my ideas.
I've watched corporations, that toxic corporate environment where, I'm going to use people to get my credit, to, use them, use their, there's this whole corporate climbing the ladder nonsense that, you're stepping on people's heads. And by the way, the corporate environment in itself creates a whole toxic environment, right? We're looking for, when we're building companies and we're building great ideas, we're looking for all to be actively involved, right?
Correct.
To really create an environment where, look, I need your input. I want your input. I want, I might go, oftentimes we'll have meetings where we go a level or two down and get down to where the rubber meets the road. For us in construction, I'm at my superintendent level or the coordinator level, and I'm going, all right, look, what are we messing up, right? What are we complicating here that needs to be taken out? I need to find people that are going to create systems. And look, I don't need your bosses to take credit for it. I need to get down to where you are. Tell me, what are we messing up every day?
100%. And so, what we have to do with our team members is help them burn a few bridges that we all carry around. And that's the self talk that says that we're not enough, that we're not smart enough, that we're not ready, that we don't have anything to contribute. That it's better to just keep our head down to collect a check than to muddy the waters or to create a ripple. And when you create an environment of and culture within your company that says, hey, we really want you to grow. We really empower you to participate. We really authentically want to receive your ideas. Your company can only be better for it. You will only be able to accelerate that success. But for us, burning bridges isn't just about removing toxic people, it's the toxic talk as well, the self talk, the things that causes us to be fearful and so we don't take action. We're sitting in meetings and we're having these amazing thoughts, and yet we're not either speaking it or being heard. It's having the gumption to step up and to give the world your best, irrespective of the consequences. And so I think oftentimes we really limit ourselves. So burning bridges also means removing those limitations and really fulfilling who you are and who you want to be. And we are in control of that. It's having the agency over ourselves as much as it is controlling our environment.
Well, shame on the corporations, but companies, we create this, right? It's all learned behavior. Shame on the companies where as we grow, we start to build this hierarchy, like, oh, I can't go past Bob, or I can't go past Betty. Betty says that I got to go to Betty, and Betty's got to go bring it to Bob, and Bob's got to go bring it to whoever else they got to bring it to. And that whole nonsense of hierarchy. Number one, if you're not coming up with ideas, even if they're wrong, right? If we're not coming with innovative ideas every single day, in fact, my judgment is if you don't mess up a few times a week, if you're not having the bold ideas that are changing an organization, you're already starting to die. Right. Every company that, sometimes we get, by the way, I've done it. I've run companies for years, my whole life. I've been an entrepreneur, and I've found myself in a place where I get nice and I'm like, let's get to a place where everything's smooth. And the truth is, to be healthy, right, in the jungle, in the world, in it's not healthy. You've got to be a little bit rough and continue to rip off those things that are bad ideas. Find those places where I've complicated the whole structure, rip it
Mhm.
off, tear it over, start over again. It
Mhm.
may be good, right? The process may be good. Someone may go, well, look, Bob created that, or Betty created that. That's a good process, but the truth is, I have to rip that all down and do better, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So here are two thoughts on that. Number one, I think companies are basically in three categories. Yours clearly is innovative because you're always looking to push the boundaries, right? So you're always looking for what's better, what's next, what's big, what's new, and you have a great tolerance for calculated risk, right? And that's amazing. And we have any number of brands who stand out when we think of innovative companies. Then we have companies that I consider to be status quo. They will eventually, they're not early adopters. They will eventually want to move in a new direction once it's sort of proven, but they're not ever going to be innovative. They're just going to kind of maintain the status quo. And then we have risk averse companies. These are the ones that do absolutely everything they possibly can to stifle any kind of creativity. So, where a status quo company might take a little longer to want to implement something that's new after it's kind of a proven proof of concept has been successful for them, a risk averse company literally, even in the face of all of that, moves or not moves at all. Like they're more comfortable just keeping it the way it is, and they have no tolerance for risk. So what that means that for us, we have to make sure that we are so being part of the selection process as to where we're going to put our time and talents. We have to make sure we're in companies that make sense for us so we can empower ourselves and we can grow, as well as help the company grow. And then the second thing I'll say is, and I saw this play out, and the majority of my career before I started my company 11 years ago was in large, complex organizations in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. And what I've come down to is this: what gets measured gets done, what gets rewarded gets repeated, and what gets punished gets avoided.
Mm.
And so, if you're not very clear as a leader as to where you stand and how you're going to empower your team, to your point, you're missing a tremendous opportunity for success.
It's hard to grow big ideas, as we look at them, and I've tried to grow some really big ideas throughout my career. And you get caught in these traps, right? You get caught in these flow traps, right? We're going to create a process. Hey, someone has attachment to the process, and we don't even notice that we've stopped being innovative. In my early days of being an entrepreneur, I took two sticks and rubbed them together to make a fire. Right. Literally, we bootstrapped every idea.
Mhm.
And then as we started getting, more and more successful and grew bigger and bigger as a company, now we're passing that 50 or 60 person mark. All of a sudden now those behaviors started getting, you get exhausted a little bit, like, all right, maybe if I can't keep doing that. But the truth is that's the behavior that kept the the system healthy. Right. Every time I looked for how I eked out something a little bit smarter, worked a little bit harder, right? Took an idea, tore it apart, and innovated. Right. If you're not going through your process and you're not taking, if you're not taking out parts of it to make it simpler and smarter, right?
Mhm.
And even to the point where you start to have failures, right? If I'm not going through and I'm literally tearing apart a process and then finding out, well, yeah, look, sometimes I'll go too far and I'll have to bring that back in, right? If I haven't gone so far to tear apart a process or procedure that I'm doing, even to the point of failure, right? I'm not trying hard enough. And that to me is the judgment of creating a great business, is that you continuously have to look at those processes, continuously have to keep them and make them smarter, right? How do you simpler and simpler and simpler, and to the point where things can flow through a system. We don't get held on to old ideas that, well, that's how we've always done it. That's
Mhm.
death. That's
Mhm.
death.
100%. And I'd also challenge you just a little bit here to
Yeah.
say it's also important to have informal processes, right?
Yeah.
Leaders in large organizations use like everybody has a decision process that's very formal, and we're going to spend a couple $1 million on development or whatever. We're going to go through a process. Absolutely. However, before the idea actually makes it to that process, there are so many conversations that take place. And as you mentioned, the hierarchy can sometimes be a challenge, but more importantly, understanding what gets rewarded within the culture, how to have those conversations informally, how to create champions, how to create promoters, how to socialize ideas also is a very, very important channel to be able to inform the things that you're talking about. And I truly believe that.
So give me a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so take any large complex organization.
Yep.
There are always going to be individuals, and they don't necessarily have to have a leadership title, but there are always going to be individuals within the organization that are influencers. And I'll say it this way. When I counsel our clients about their brand and integrity and those types of things, typically large organizations create rules around bad behavior. So rather than going and facing a particular employee that can't show up on time, they literally go install this elaborate system to try and track everybody, right? And we saw this during the pandemic as well. So people who happen to be, I think, like you and I, because I'm very introverted, but I have the opportunity. So I work really well by myself. I can work with a team, but I really, really get very productive when I'm working by myself. So for me, the pandemic was different, but a lot of us really produced even more. We were working 15, 12, 15 hours a day, just getting it done because we were unfettered.
That's
So
right.
organizations typically do this. They create these really harsh requirements. Like now everybody has to go back to work, even though there are those who prove that they are more productive when they work alone at home. That being said, when organizations create these rules, they really are only impacting maybe 20%, right, of slackers. And it doesn't really matter what you do, slackers are a slacker. That's what
That's
they
right.
do,
That's right.
right? You have these high performers, let's say that's 20%. So you have these high performers that now are being placed under these rules, which is going to stifle their productivity because they already bought the Kool-Aid. They already are drinking the Kool-Aid. They have the corporate t-shirt. They're 100% going to deliver because that's who they are. But now these new rules require them to have to participate as like they're a slacker. But we forget all the people in the middle. The 60% that is watching this, we want them to go more toward the high performers. And yet we really don't give them that opportunity. So what I'm saying is, in informal conversations and in informal practices, there are employees at every level of a large and complex organization who are influencers. They have the trust and credibility of those around them. They have the ability to move and make change. And those are the ones that we need to seek out. Those are the ones we need to give access to. They're the ones that can socialize ideas and move things. They're also the ones that everybody watches. So we as leaders at the top don't necessarily pay attention to them, but we should because they can help drive change and innovation throughout the entire organization.
Well, so let's go back. Okay, touchy subject for me. Working from home, not working from home. Look, I'm with you. Great people work at home, work at the office, work at home. Great, right? Bad people are bad at the office. They're bad at home. The people that 60% in the middle, right? They're there's some goods and some bad. But my judgment is that working from home was great for the great people. But what really sucked was that having those great people not in the face of the rest of the group, not in there, it was side by side, shoulder to shoulder, literally going, all right, look, I can't, you can't be here, right? Looking at someone going, I'm sorry, you're not qualified to be on this team. Now, the problem with corporate America is that getting rid of somebody, walking in and going, yeah, you're fired, get out of here, right? Becomes this whole, you're going to get sued. You're going to this whole, I have to be nice all the time or someone's going to sue me because I said something wrong. But you got people who show up late and do nonsense stuff and are literally negative to the team. They cause negative behaviors and they're toxic. But somewhere in our corporate environment or the world, we have to create all these rules of how we're going to get rid of that toxic person. Right now, I got to go through all these steps. I got to write them up. I got to do that. But in the meantime, they're being toxic to the whole group. Right?
100%.
They're hurting our group. And my judgment is that when we're in a group together, when we put people why I like people in the office is I think those good people, they're there and everybody's watching their performance. They see it. They emulate a behavior that's great for the environment, great for in fact, my judgment is when people do great things, when we do big things, we feel great. When we accomplish big ideas that change the planet, big ideas that change our workplace, the employees feel great when they're walking around trying to hide and they're in the bottom 20% are infecting them. Well, look, I got this employee over there and look, he didn't do anything all day long. He sat in his cube all day long. He was trying to hide from every time the boss came in. It clicked off. He clicked off Amazon on Cyber Monday, and now he was shopping all morning long. Now, what's he doing to help grow this company? Right? He's not right, and that behavior needs to be someone needs to walk up. No, you're out of here, right? We can't have you here, and that means that has to be all the way across the board that we're all here for the same reason. The problem is that we're too nice all the time, right? All of a sudden, like I don't want to get Bob in trouble, right? Bob's over there. Look, I'm not here to get him fired. I don't want the guy to lose his job. But what we don't realize is that when we don't do that, we're all going to lose our jobs, right? The whole company gets infested, and the weight of bad employees takes down more companies than we can imagine.
100%. Like I said, what gets rewarded gets repeated, and what gets punished gets avoided. And in that scenario, everyone already knows. The manager, everybody already knows. And the reason I know that they already know is because when a project comes down or when the next thing has to be taken care of, You're never going to give it to the 20% ever, because you already know.
That's right.
So since you already know, take action, right? Talk to your lawyers, talk to your HR professionals, figure it out, because ultimately, to your point, they're not helping the culture, and they're certainly not helping the company grow. But I'll tell you something else. When you start to focus on the 20% that are high performers and moving the 60% toward them, all of a sudden the cover on the 20% that are lacking gets removed. They can't duck and hide anymore. It becomes really clear. And you know what happens then? Either you have the cause to remove them, or they remove themselves, because they no longer are in an environment where they can hide. And so, again, when you think about burning bridges and removing and addressing toxic situations, you absolutely have to address those employees that are not part and parcel to the culture that you want for your company. And sometimes they will remove themselves given the right circumstances. So, again, I think that we all have the requirement to stand up and to know what our North Star is. For me, it's integrity. And anytime that becomes a question, then I am going to respond, right? I'm going to defend my reputation. I'm going to do what's necessary. I think that in organizations, we need to empower more of our employees to say, that's good, that's okay, this is what we want. And we reward those things and we'll get it repeated. So that's why I think it's really important that we really focus on figuring out what makes sense for our companies. And as people and individuals and contributors, figuring out what works for us and finding the right matches.
Well, going back to that integrity piece, I think there are lots of ideas that, as a great leader, you're always working on integrity to what you're working on, right? For us, we're trying to change construction, right? For me, the construction world is a dinosaur, right? It's archaic. It runs like, we built the Coliseum and we're building buildings today very similar to Coliseum. We carry heavy crap over here, we bang on it, and we all are all confused. It's frustrating. It's inefficient. The business is built on lies. And we're really working hard on changing the way the world happens in the construction world, like dramatically changing. Like I would like to, change it. It's an environmental nightmare, right? It's a complete environmental nightmare. And, as we build this business, as we go through those things, every once in a while, if I stay to those ideas, right, what we're doing is changing the environment. We're getting rid of this toxic workflow. Construction people work hard, right? This is not an easy business. It takes a lot from the people in the field to people in the office. It's lots of hard work. Now, to make those changes, every once in a while, I'll make some mistakes, right? Because when you want to be innovative and you're going to change some ideas, you're going to mess some things up. Now, the problem is I've been smacked on the face a few times by messing some things up, right? You go and you push a little too hard, all of a sudden someone gets mad, someone quits, someone said something bad about you. But sometimes I got to remember, I'm going to make some mistakes as a leader. When I push for the idea, when I say integrity to the idea, look, my whole purpose is to change the business, right? When I'm looking at, and I want leaders to know that when they're going through ideas, your integrity to the idea, you're going to push some buttons and you're going to make some mistakes. You're not always going to be able to grow an idea and then find out in the middle of it, oh, whoops, I made a mistake there. Now, manage that, right? Manage that process, but remembering that it's okay that you're going to mess up, right? It's never,
100%.
yeah.
100%. So, great example is Netflix, right? The number one streaming company, right? So their process is literally that the execs stay out of the creativity. They allow their teams to develop these unique concepts, run the traps, and then ultimately present them to them. So the filters that are typically placed when you start trying to review new concepts and innovative ideas or storytelling or whatever not are removed to later in the process, which allows them to have creative freedom. And that's one of the reasons that they keep coming up with groundbreaking programming, because they really invest in the creatives and allow them to bring forward and work through concepts before they're presented. So there's not that, oh, let me see what you're working on right now. So, to your point, it really helps when we as leaders trust our teams. When we put those systems in place that says, hey, look, integrity is important. It's important for us as a company. It's important to me as a leader. It's important that my leaders demonstrate that and our employees understand that that's what we're about. And I'll tell you something else about using your or empowering and leveraging your personal integrity as a leader is that it makes decision making super easy. When you're facing really challenging and difficult decisions, if you're based on integrity, it makes it very different for you to have those difficult decisions made easy. Now, that's not to say that when you have to let someone go or you have to maybe lay off some people or whatever, that that's ever easy. But if it's to recognize that this is what our company needs in order to be able to continue to move forward and grow, then we should absolutely be able to lean in. For me, throughout my career, I have been presented with a number of a number of situations that literally I needed to remove myself if necessary because I refused to do things that were against what I believe was the appropriate or right thing to do. And so we need to have more of that. We need to step up and we need to stand up for what we believe in as leaders.
Well, or hold people accountable. Like, hey, look, that's wrong. We're not going to do
100%.
something. I'm not doing something illegal to cover your ass. And by the way, the fact that we're even thinking about doing that as an organization, it's nonsense, right? I mean, when somebody in the organization asks me to do something inappropriately, now there's always this idea like, all right, what does that mean? All right, am I asking someone to do something illegal, or am I asking someone to do something that's out of the process? We're going to change some ideas. When it's something illegal or unethical, it's always a no-go, right? No matter what, it's a no-go, right? There's unequivocally, we're not looking to do that. Now, if it's something to push an idea that's going to be different than we've done it before, now there might be something that, all right, finding some flexibility in that. All right, look, we always used to do, it took 7 days to do this. Now I'm asking you to do this in 3, right? Oh, that's going to hurt a little bit. Oh, you're asking me, oh, what? I'm going to have to work a couple more hours today to get that done. Well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe look, I mean, I'm going to push your buttons a little bit. Somewhere in that's what happens in my belief is when we look at an organization and where we find things that be unhealthy, you know, we get stuck in this way of being. Well, that took 7 days. I got to make it take 7 days. And I'm like, look, no, today we can't do 7 days. I have a competitor that's up there. They're going to do it in 3 days. I need you to do it in 2.5 days. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if that's the process and it's going to take us rolling our sleeves up, and maybe today I got to put in a lot extra time to do that, right? That's the part where we get comfortable. Like, I don't want to, I don't look, I had 7 days to do that before. Now you're asking me to do it in 2.5 days. I'm like, look, you understand, if you don't do that, we don't get this project. That other company gets it, and we all lose a job, right? So,
100%.
and staying healthy, staying competitive, I've got to look at those processes or those ways, those actions, those behaviors we have as an organization, and go,
Mm-hmm.
maybe today I got to push those limits a little bit, a little bit different. And likewise, it may be also that, hey, it used to be that, everybody on Fridays worked till 5, and I may be kind of boss that, hey, my people worked their butt off this week. I'm letting them all go off. They're all coming in the morning. We'll have a morning meeting, and they're all taking that Friday afternoons off on the at some time, so I can have work hard, play hard. Or but it might be the opposite this week. It might be that, hey, I need you all to work Saturday for me. And what
Mm-hmm.
do you mean you work Saturday? I'm gonna work on a Saturday. Well,
Mm-hmm.
well, look, today, if I don't do that, I may not be able to compete with the competitors that are out there. And I think this is what's messing up our American society. We get stuck in this 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
5 days a week, this way of being that becomes kind of, I have to do it this way. And my judgment is that going forward, that's not going to work anymore. That the 9 to 5 static way of doing things is dying. That, there'll be surges, right? There'll be times when I got to surge and run and knock something out. And
Yep.
then there'll be times when I can kick back and give everybody a minute to take a breath and relax. But we should be always in that environment of healthy, creative, pushing the concept forward at whatever it takes for us to do that with integrity, because we have integrity to the idea. The idea is, I want to push the business forward. I want to push the idea forward, or I want to get to more customers, or I want to grow our brand awareness. So I think, Renee, that's these challenges that you create, I think are it's hard to say that because most of us are trained, be nice, right? Don't hit
Yes.
your brother, right? When you were a kid, you're like, don't argue, right? Don't, we're taught to behave, and some of that's okay. I mean, look, I get as a civilization, we don't want to walk around fighting everybody every day, but also in business, we got to stay healthy and keep those business environments, that business behavior that keeps our
Mhm.
businesses healthy.
Oh, I agree. And, the other thing that, as you were speaking, that came to my mind was, somewhere we decided that everyone should get rewarded, like like I showed up, so therefore I should be rewarded. Uh, and I'm just not a fan of that concept. I think you reward the team when the team has contributed, but I also think when people are literally influencers, are literally leading the charge, that they should be recognized as well. And so I think this whole idea of I showed up, so I should be rewarded is also crippling, frankly, our ability to be innovative as well, because it's like, well, but I was part of the team, but what did you contribute? Right. So I think that we have to be clear about what those reward systems are, and that we're properly rewarding those who participate and not just rewarding everybody because they were there.
Heresy, you say. Heresy. Renee, that is heresy. That is not allowed in America. We're not allowed to hold people accountable for producing value rather than just showing up. We all need to have a participation where everybody gets a trophy. Oh, look, you showed up, you sat there and you kicked daisies all day long, and you get the participation award. I like that we are, look, all inclusive. I got it. But the
100%.
behavior of giving something for nothing is toxic. It's a toxic way of being. Look, if we don't help people create value where they found self-worth, they ultimately down below, my biggest belief is that when I give something to somebody and they don't earn it, ultimately there's an underground resentment that gets built, right? They don't feel it. Now, how is it my responsibility to help them create it? Right. There's another part of me that says, look, I can't just expect that everybody shows up with everything I know. Look, I've been doing this. I'm 55 years old. I've been doing this since I'm 20. I've been doing construction since I'm 10 years old. I know construction intimately. Now, if someone shows up here and I need to teach them the process, that's fair, right? But the idea that you just get a participation award for being on the team and you're over there, you're the one that the team's dragging, that's a tough one to do. Again, there's old companies that used to say, "Hey, look, I need to cut 10% of my workforce every year." Right? There was old companies like IBM that did that kind of behaviors. Now that's sometimes a little dramatic in American culture, right? Our one is to help everybody along, but there is something healthy about that as well, right? When I say to myself, look, you have got to maintain teams that are creating, everybody on the team's creating value,
Mhm.
or we're gonna all fail somewhere in the future.
100%. 100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the funny thing about that. So individuals, employees who think that they are kind of like they've got cover and whatnot are always the ones that are amazed that they're part of the 10%. But that happened way upstream. So by the time the rumors start that, oh, we may be, needing to make some changes and some cuts and blah, 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 by the time the rumor hit, you're already on the list. More times than not. They're not now just starting to decide what that's going to look like and who might be impacted. Your participation or lack thereof, or your contribution or lack thereof over the course of time has already been noted. And so this idea that, oh, I can just like get busy now is really a misnomer, because it can't happen because your name is pretty much already on the list.
That's awesome. Renee, I love this conversation. Look, like this is what America needs a little bit of the old fashioned kick me in the ass, keep me healthy, be integrity to the idea, to the integrity of what you're doing. Stop having integrity to some bad ideas that are ultimately toxic, right? There's some real toxic behaviors. By the way, it's part of growing a society. We're gonna have some ideas, and then we're gonna look at some of those and go, well, maybe that was not the right way to do it. And I honor you for being bold and brave and helping create organizations that are healthy, that are really stick to integrity, to the concept of what they're doing, that even sometimes it may not be the mainstream concepts of today, that everybody gets a participation award, right? That you're really creating companies that are valuable and strong and ultimately long-term healthy, right? Long-term healthy companies are what we want to build. And I honor you for the work that you're doing. As people want to work with you, right? They want to bring you in as a coach to their company. What's the best places for them to get a hold of you?
Actually, I'll do two things. One, they can always follow me on LinkedIn because I'm very responsive there, or they can visit me at my website, or they could give me a call at 248-671-3872.
Great. And it's Renee Walker, right? We'll put all the links down below in the podcast notes. You guys will see that. Connor and the team will make sure that all that it's down there. Renee, having you on the podcast, it really inspires me to go back out today and go, all right, where am I not being healthy, right? Where am I not being healthy today as a company? And what do I need to do to continuously look at those places and those processes where we need to do a little bit of work on it? And I'm so grateful for having you on the show.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And my final thought is this: success is not a spectator sport. You have to get in the game.
Awesome. I love it. Get down on the playing field. I love that. Renee Walker, you are a pleasure to have on this podcast. You're a gift to today's economy and today's world. So thanks for being on here. Audience, as always, if you can take a second right now, like and subscribe. Joe and Connor and Van and the team in the background that put the podcast together work tirelessly, find great podcast guests like Renee in the background. It just means the world to them. If you could just take a second and do that now. And as always, any comments or put down below, I will make sure that Renee and I will answer all of those. And as always, thanks for listening.